Congress held additional hearings on lead poisoning in the water supply of Flint, Michigan. The crisis began after an unelected emergency manager appointed by the Michigan Republican Governor Rick Snyder switched the source of Flint's drinking water to the corrosive Flint River. Snyder testified on Thursday and acknowledged his role in the crisis.
Blunt, this was a failure of government at all levels. Local, state, and federal officials. We all failed the families of Flint. This isn't about politics nor partisanship. I'm not going to point fingers or shift blame. There's plenty of that to share, and neither will help the people of Flint. Not a day or night goes by that this tragedy doesn't weigh on my mind. The questions I should have asked, the answers I should have demanded, how I could have prevented this.
Among those who testified this week are EPA Administrator Gina McCarthy, Flint's former emergency manager, Darnell Early, who refused to testify at last month's hearing despite a subpoena from the U.S. House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. The hearings took on a partisan tone, with Republicans going after the EPA's McCarthy and Democrats grilling Snyder. Well, for more on the congressional hearings into Flint's water crisis, we're joined by two guests. Melissa Mays, activist and founder of What Are You Fighting For? That's WATER, What Are You Fighting For? And she is a Flint, Michigan-based research and advocacy organization head. It was founded around the city's water crisis. She and her 3 children suffer from long-term exposure to heavy metals because of the water supply. And Naira Sharif is with us, coordinator of the Flint Democracy Defense League. They both attended the congressional hearing. Naira, your response to what the governor said yesterday. It was his first time speaking at the hearing.
It was interesting because the governor has not yet spoken or come to Flint and to speak to residents in a public setting. So it was very interesting for him to go down there, and we sent over 150 people from Flint down to the hearing.
And did you hear anything new, Melissa Mays?
The only thing that was different was this was the first time that he even slightly admitted that he knew anything was wrong with the water in 2014. He has tried to stand by the I didn't know anything until October of 2015, but then he said, well, there were issues with the water, discoloration and foul smell, like that was okay, just because there wasn't lead in it. However, the test results show that there was lead in 2014 as well.
The partisan divide was on display during Thursday's hearing in the Flint water crisis, with Democrats calling for the resignation of Governor Rick Snyder and Republicans doing the same with the EPA Administrator Gina McCarthy. This is an exchange between Congressmember Jason Chaffetz, a Utah Republican, and chair of the Oversight and Reform Committee, and EPA head Gina McCarthy.
In February is when you first arrived on the scene, and it wasn't until January of the next year that you actually did something. That's the fundamental problem. Don't look around like you're mystified. That's what happened. Miguel Del Toro showed up in February. You didn't take action. You didn't. And you could have pulled that switch.
We consistently took action from that point forward.
There are a lot of people in this audience from Flint. Sir, nobody believes that you took action. You had those levers there. Mark Edwards from Virginia Tech, bless his heart. No, just listen for a second. Okay. Had the opportunity. They have said things like, we failed to get EPA to take lead and water risks seriously. It's possible, another quote of his, and this is possible because the EPA has effectively condoned cheating on the lead and copper rule monitoring since 2006. He read your op-ed that you put out that was one of the most offensive things I could possibly imagine. And he says about you, EPA Administrator Gina McCarthy, that effectively absolved EPA of any wrongdoing or any role in creating the Flint disaster. If you want to do the courageous thing, like you said Susan Headman did, then you too should resign.
After a tense exchange, Congressman Matt Cartwright, a Pennsylvania Democrat, called for Snyder's resignation.
I've had about enough of your false contrition and your phony apologies. Susan Headman from the EPA bears not 1/10 of the responsibility of the state of Michigan and your administration, and she resigned, and there you are, dripping with guilt, withdrawing your paycheck, hiring lawyers at the expense of the people, and doing your dead-level best to spread accountability to others and not being accountable. It's not appropriate. Pretty soon, we will have men who strike their wives saying, I'm sorry, dear, but there were failures at all levels. People who put dollars over the fundamental safety of the people do not belong in government. And you need to resign, too, Governor Snyder. Again, Pennsylvania Democrat Matt Cartwright telling Governor Rick Snyder to resign. Melissa Mays, how is this helping what is happening in Flint? And what would that mean if the governor resigned?
Well, the biggest thing I think that the hearings are showing is that we matter. For 2 years, we've been yelling and screaming about the water, and we didn't matter. No one listened. So here it is on a national scale. It's in front of Congress, and that just shows that what happened to us is indeed a crime. It's wrong. We're not crazy. And so we're hoping that this will further any criminal investigation. I mean, they were both sworn in. There were lies told. We sat there and just screamed in the audience. But if he resigns, obviously he's not going to do anything to help, but he's doing very little being in office as he is. So the only thing that we can hope for is that whoever follows him behind actually steps up, takes responsibility, and fixes our city. What do you feel is Governor Rick Snyder's responsibility? For someone tuning in today for the first time, they don't know what happened in Flint, Michigan. Why do you feel the governor is responsible? Well, because we were under a state of emergency management, meaning he appointed one person to run our city. That one person made all of the decisions as for switching our water source and to ignore us, and that one person reported back only to the governor and treasurer. So this is on the state. They knew that there were problems in 2014, and they let us continue to drink the water for 18 months. So in April of 2014, they switched the water supply of Flint that what Flint had for like 50 years, yes, the Detroit water supply, to the corrosive Flint River. Yes. Did you at home immediately notice something wrong? It was soon after. We started smelling open sewer coming out of our taps, and our water started turning yellow. And we just, I mean, we knew it wasn't going to be great. We thought it was a joke that we were going to the Flint River. But as soon as the discoloration happened and the foul smells and then the rashes started, we knew it was bad. And they just told us it's hard water, it's safe, you'll be fine. Earlier in the week, former EPA official Susan Headman, who resigned in the wake of the Flint water crisis, testified before the House Oversight Committee hearing. California Democratic Congressman Ted Lieu asked Headman why it took so long for the agency to warn residents.
You knew, EPA knew in April, corrosive agent's not done. In June, you were notified of that. And then you were given a report that said lots of lead in this drinking water. And then nothing is done until December. There is no excuse for that. Someone needed to have yelled and screamed and said, stop this. People are being poisoned. Should have been done in at least July or August, maybe September, at least by October. That was so wrong. This was a crime of epic proportions that could have been prevented. I yield back.
So explain, Melissa Mays, who Susan Headman was, regional director of the EPA. She's resigned. Yes. And explain who Miguel Del Toro is. Well, he's part of the water division, and he's an expert as for, water treatment. And he asked, in February of 2015, he asked the state Department of Environmental Quality, are you using corrosion control? Because he saw the high lead levels already, occurring. And he said, are you using corrosion control? And they said, yes. They lied to the EPA. Well, he didn't believe them because we were turning in more and more test results that showed high lead. So he kept digging into it. In June, he released an interim report saying that there's problems. They're not doing their job at the state level. And what did Headman do with that report? Said that it wasn't finished, it wasn't finalized, it was full of errors, and that they did not back him. They did not back him, and then we weren't allowed to speak to him for weeks. And she then was forced to resign. Finally, Naira Sharif, as you see these two hearings this week, what are you going back to? What are you demanding now?
Well, Flint needs a full-on humanitarian effort because Snyder has said that all levels of government have failed Flint. Really, there was only one level, and that was because of the emergency manager law. We did not have access to local democracy. We did not have agency. And we really need, this is a public health disaster. We at the state sites, we could only get 1 case of water per day, and that is not enough to meet the needs of the community.
Seconds. Right now is your most important demand.
We need a public health disasters declaration by President Obama.
We're going to leave it there. We're going to continue the conversation and post online at democracynow.org. Naira Sharif, coordinator with Flint Democracy Defense League, and Melissa Mays, activist and founder of What Are You Fighting For? This is Democracy Now! I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks so much for joining us.